Welcome back to episode 5 of The Relay. Thank you guys for joining us. In today's episode, we're going to talk about another tale that happened in the Brendan Sorsby situation as he enters the supplemental draft. The NBA finals are over, but we're going to play a little matchmaker and see if we can put teams in places that we think will be pretty exciting. We're going to talk about some questions that we have for the NFL offseason, and then we're going to finish off with talking about the FIFA World Cup as it is in full swing with about a week gone of competition. So thanks for watching. If you guys would please like and subscribe, and also can you guys please follow us at The Relay Media on Instagram, X, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube. Other than that, sit back, relax, and let's run the relay. One week ago, Brendan Sorsby was the center of one of the biggest controversies in college sports, and now instead of going back to Texas Tech into a national championship chase, he's headed for the NFL supplemental draft. And there's some questions that we'd like to answer. But talking about it, the saga is finally over. Sorsby plans to enter the NFL supplemental draft. This obviously ends the legal battle over whether he could play for Texas Tech. He'll also withdraw his lawsuit against the NCAA, and Texas Tech is going to now move forward without him. I wanted to talk to you guys. For him specifically, we'll go Sergio first. For him specifically, was entering the supplemental draft the right move for him? Because possibly that he could have faced even further legal action by the NCAA, or do you think that he would have been able to play this year and continue to up his stock into next season?
I think that this was absolutely the right move for him, just in terms of avoiding, all the other bad PR like Texas Tech was getting from this. I think that punishment from some kind of organization like the Big 12 was inevitable. They had just met yesterday, and although they did not come to a decision, they said all outcomes are on the table. And I think it was just kind of when he was going to get punished rather than if from the Big 12, because there were teams outraged, there were teams not wanting to play Texas Tech at all. So I just think that it was absolutely the right move. Just totally avoiding this situation getting worse for him. So he was just like, let me just remove myself from the situation. And I think that was absolutely the best thing he could have done.
Yeah, I think it's a great decision because I feel like the NCAA would have just kept fighting it, because at the end of the day, this wasn't a court ruling that went out from the NCAA. This was a outsider court ruling that was saying that he was still eligible to play after all this that came out. So I absolutely think this is the best move. Get him out of the Big 12, get him out of the NCAA, to where it's not their worry no more. It's now his worry, I guess, where he has to basically prove himself, make his name now. Basically, he's not a gambler no more. He's got to prove that to NFL teams now, which that'll be a struggle, but it was probably the best outcome possible out of this whole situation.
Yeah, in terms of, outcome for him personally, I don't know if it's necessarily the best for him, but I think for the NCAA, this is probably the best case scenario that could have happened with what had transpired. I think that this is still a stain on the NCAA. I'm not going to let go of that because, they talked about further legal action, and now we're sitting here talking about, Sorsby's going to the supplemental draft. I don't think for him it's the right move, even though it probably was the only move that he could have done at the end of the day. So again, just to reiterate how we got here, more than 9,000 bets, at least $90,000 wagered by Sorsby, obviously not directly by him, but a lot of it was, going and giving the ability for others to bet for him. bets involving Indiana football while he was on the roster. He obviously used proxy betting accounts through friends, and the NCAA ruled him permanently ineligible before a judge gave him an injunction. Again, I want to ask the question of, did the NCAA actually win here? The NCAA's ruling ultimately does stand, and Sorsby's not going to play college football again, but I think it was mainly because of the Big 12 schools that this happened. They were discussing sanctions against Texas Tech. Multiple state attorney generals became involved in this situation, and I think a lot of pressure was mounting on Texas Tech. I think the NCAA, for me personally, may have looked powerless for a week, but in the end, if Sorsby still isn't playing, I don't think it restores the credibility of the NCAA, but you guys can let me know. Does this restore the credibility of the NCAA to you personally?
Overall, not really. If anything, I think it just showed that the conferences, still have that power to punish a player or a coach or a team, kind of like how they were planning on doing. And that kind of brings strength to NCAA, I guess, as a whole a little bit. But, I think it just brings more power to or it just makes the conferences look a little bit better, since they were actually willing and could do the right thing. Also, Texas Attorney General, what are you doing? I don't understand what the point was of that letter that he sent. And then shout out Oklahoma Attorney General. He clapped back and was like, no, you can't threaten us with your empty threats. It didn't make the whole thing from the Texas side of things just did not make any sense to me. And, they're the ones that Texas Tech and just Texas Attorney General they just look horrible now. They look awful. So,
yeah.
Yeah, it almost felt like, kind of like a dad and a stepdad, different ways of punishing them in their own households. Because you have, the NCAA was they kind of just sat there. They kind of just took it, They didn't really care. I won't say they didn't care, but they didn't fight it at first until they faced all this pressure with, the Big 12 not wanting to play them and just everything that was going on there. So I felt like had this gone on, I feel like the NCAA would have fought it. But now that all this has come out and that he'll just be going to the supplemental draft, I just think it was probably the best outcome to not embarrass the NCAA any more than they have already been.
Yeah, again, I don't think it restores credibility to the NCAA. I think it generally still is a pretty bad look on the NCAA that it even got to this place in the first place. But in terms of how this looks for Big 12 or stuff, I don't know if going into this year that Texas Tech would have been allowed to compete for national championships or even a Big 12 championship, right? And I think that's where Texas Tech kind of drew the line of do we even want this player on our team, and kind of came to an agreement with Sorsby. Maybe not an agreement, but Sorsby came to that decision himself to kind of help Texas Tech out. An interesting way to spin this actually is, did Sorsby win in all of this? He already earned roughly $1 million in NIL deals. He still has a path to professional football. He avoided months of legal uncertainty with all of these cases that possibly could have gone, and he now gets an opportunity to get a fresh start in the NFL. So obviously the supplemental draft for him is a better outcome. I think if you had to compare that to spending another year in college and everything was fine, obviously the year at college would have been better. But this is going to be an interesting topic to look at for this offseason. Is there an NFL team that would take a chance on him? I've had a lot of discussions with some people, and some of my friends say there's no way that the NFL would touch him. They think that he's atomic waste. But I think there is a team that probably would go out there and touch him, right? The supplemental draft deadline is the 22nd, and first round picks are almost never used. And no player has been selected in the supplemental draft since 2019. I think the talent suggests that Sorsby could be a pick, with a strong season. But there's going to be NFL teams that are going to have to decide now whether the gambling history outweighs the talent. if you guys were an NFL GM, like, what's the highest round pick you would spend on a Brendan Sorsby at this point?
I think, well, first of all, I think that a team,
Or would you even like take him in the first place?
yeah, I think that a team would take him. I mean, if I was like struggling for a quarterback, maybe. I mean, take a flyer on him if I'm the Jets or something. Like, who knows? But the highest pick that I would use is like a fifth or like a fourth. Like, nothing crazy. Even that feels kind of like a stretch because after that he'll become, a free agent and you can sign him for whatever and like not give up a pick at all for him. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think highest would be like a fifth or a sixth.
Okay.
But to be honest, I don't think there are many organizations that would, spend that pick or even just go after him in general because they don't want that look. Now there's the exception to a couple organizations here who employ, other past felons, which are a lot worse than gambling addicts.
Yeah,
But
true.
I'm not gonna mention that organization. But there's a certain organization that would definitely go after him no matter what.
Yeah. He's talking about the Eagles. Not um I'm obviously not gonna think that the Eagles would pick him up because I just think their quarterback situation is fine. But yeah, I think that there would be a team that takes a chance on him, right? Like whether that be, I don't think the Browns are going to do that at this point. They got like 60 million quarterbacks in that room at this
yeah, they
point.
have
But
way too
I think
many.
the Jets are, yeah, I think the Jets are an option there because behind Geno Smith, there's not that much depth for this team. And so I don't know. I think day 3 pick is where I'm looking at, but I wouldn't be shocked if he goes undrafted and never plays a down of football again. There's not going to be shock for me personally, but I think there will be a team. I don't think that there's going to be a team that just does not look at the talent and just takes a shot at it.
Yeah.
For Texas Tech, I mean, I think their national title hopes took a huge hit for this. Will Hammond is probably going to be their starter, and he's recovering from an ACL injury. So the positive is that he's going to have a whole summer now with this team to kind of get things right. It's not like if Sorsby would have, stayed with the legal, journey, that this probably would have happened later in the process of the college football offseason, and that would have made it way more difficult for Will Hammond to be successful for Texas Tech. So, I don't. In terms of Texas Tech, I think they just went from like a playoff contender to just probably like a Big 12 contender overnight. But that conference is going to be super interesting to watch this year. Because of this situation. But I also think that they have the opportunity to still be okay because it was so early in the offseason of the college football summer.
Yeah, I think.
Do you guys think that
I think they'll.
Texas Tech becomes a playoff contender?
I still think that they'll be in there. I don't think that they'll be, to the caliber as they thought they could be. I mentioned it earlier, but this is just like a horrible look for them, especially, all the athletic directors and administration there. I'm sure some teams will play them a little bit harder just because of the circumstance. I don't think they'll be exactly headhunted or anything, but I think some coaches might send a message like, this team is kind of shady. Let's play them a little bit harder. But I think overall, I still think that they'll be okay, especially like you mentioned, their backup has an entire summer to prep with the team and get it right.
Yeah.
So I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be in the mix for a playoff spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think there was ever a doubt that this team was going to be a playoff contender with him or without him. This team was what? They were ranked 4th last year, I want to say.
Yeah, they
Or was it-
finished the college football playoff ranking as a 4 seed.
Yeah, like I think that I don't think he was as big. I don't think he was as big of a deal to his team as a lot of people make him out to be. I think he's just. I think this team will be just fine without him. So when it comes down to it, I think I still look for this team to be playoff contenders. It will be a little struggle, them having to just sort out backup quarterback, getting it sorted out, getting new accustomed to it. But at the end of the day, it's really early, like you said, so this should be fine.
Yeah, I was trying to look real quick at the who are the favorites to win this Big 12 conference right now. It's a bit Texas Tech is still the favorites. BYU and Utah are right behind them. Pretty ironic that I'm looking at this while some guy's getting arrested for it. So, that sucks for him. But again, who comes out of this situation looking the best? I don't think anybody really does. I don't think Sorsby does.
No
Texas
one.
Tech certainly doesn't. NCAA doesn't at all. Yeah, I agree with you, Sergio. Nobody does. I think this version, though, of what happened is probably stronger because it focuses on the future. I just think it focuses on this is a guy that did this. It almost worked out for him, and it at the end of the day, it didn't. So let us know down below if you do have a winner in this. Is Brendan Sorsby a winner? Is the NFL a winner? Is Texas Tech or the NCAA, have they found themselves out to be a winner at the end of the day? The NBA Finals may be over, but the offseason is just getting started. Every year, there are stars looking for new homes and contenders searching for one final piece, and franchises also trying to change their future with one move. Today, we're going to play a little game, which is NBA Free Agent Matchmaker. I'm going to list 6 of the biggest names expected to be available this offseason, whether that be through free agency or whether that be through trade. So I guess NBA Matchmaker just by itself is probably a better term for this. Some of these pairings I think are going to make a lot of sense. Some of these are going to be complete long shots for me because I got a couple of hot takes. But I think this is going to be interesting to see where we look at all of these players and see where they're going to go. So I got 6 players here. 2 of them are for trade. 4 of them are free agents right now. Let's start by going with player number 1, James Harden, point guard for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think he has a player option this year. Let's just go around the horn and to say what our prediction is for where James Harden will end up next season. My prediction, I'm going to say the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think they re-sign him, even though I don't know how effective he was at the end of the day for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I just think that they are going to see that there's no other free agent out there that they could generally get to improve the team as much as they want to. I think they're just going to have to try and improve from within. And I'm going to say the Cleveland Cavaliers is where he signs. I could see, a guard strap team that is looking for, a veteran scoring option to pick him up, but I just think Cleveland's going to lock him up. So yeah, give me the Cavs.
Yeah, I think the Cavs would be a little mindless not to try to at least try and re-sign him. I think he'll go back to the Cavs. They also gave up a lot to get him. I agree with that point. They made it to the Western Conference Finals. I feel like that's
he was trash though.
That's true. Yeah,
he was so bad. Like defensively, Jalen Brunson was picking him apart, and so what did he bring to the team that Darius Garland wouldn't have? Right? Like Garland, when he went to the Clippers, was actually such a phenomenal offensive option. And they traded him away because they didn't think that he would be a help for them in this playoff run. Sure, you might have gone further with James Harden, but at the end of the day, I think that the goal is to win a championship. I don't think it would be mindless for them to do. I think that's kind of like the only option that they have, right? So that's kind of where I sit on that. But continue.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. It's like their only option, so it's like, why wouldn't you? Also, I know NBA teams don't really think this way, but they gave up a ton to get him, so might as well bring him back. So I mean, kind of just extend the value that you get out of him. I mean, obviously his defense is atrocious, but he's a guy. He's a veteran player who's obviously a shell of what he once was in terms of the MVP, but he can still score when he needs to, I feel like. So.
Yeah. All right, Daniel?
I want to be fun here, as much as I think he'll probably go to the Cavs, I'm gonna be fun here and say he goes to the Magic. No,
Interesting.
I think the
Okay.
Mag I think the Magic are one of those teams that, really they need a veteran. They need, like you said, they need a veteran status. There's still a core of technically young players. And, they
Yeah.
finally made a playoff. No, I won't say run, but they made the playoffs. And I think that's one of your situations where you really do need a veteran player to help establish, what can be going on in the playoffs, and just, teach them some things, just help them, keep their cool, things like that. And
Yeah.
Harden is, well, not one of the best playoff performers. He's got that playoff experience that would help that team grow a lot mentally.
Yeah, I didn't really think of the Magic. I'm trying to think like how that team would fit because you got Harden at the one then. Bane is also like their heavy shooting option. Paolo is gonna want the ball a lot. Wagner's in there as well. I think that in prospect, this is a team that he could go to. I just don't know if that's a good fit for the Magic, just because the amount of. I think it's going to be a similar situation to the Nets a couple of years ago, where it's just going to be a lot of offense, that a lot of ball handlers, and it's not really going to work out. But I could see the Magic for sure trying to pick him up. All right, next player is another point guard and another free agent, actually hotly contested, and it's going to be Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves played for the Los Angeles Lakers last season, and he's coming up on a free free agency, and he's looking for a big contract. Daniel, we'll go the other way this time. Who do you think picks up Austin Reeves? Where does he go?
So I think with this one, I want to say the Lakers do take him back.
Okay.
I think Reeves is just too important to this team to just give up on him. I say they give him his bag. He's the second option behind Luka, because realistically, LeBron's gone after this season. This will most likely be LeBron's last season. The only way I don't see Reeves getting re-signed is if they get another big superstar. But
Mm-hmm.
I personally think that the Lakers won't be as ambitious as to get who you probably think I'm thinking of. And I think they keep this Austin Reeves Luka pairing alive.
Okay. Sergio?
Yeah, this is actually where the Lakers would be mindless to not keep Austin Reeves.
Yes.
He's
Agreed.
been such an asset for the team. He can play both sides of the ball really well. He's developed into a star for them over the years. I'm a Lakers fan, so I'd be like heartbroken to see him go. But a team that I think that if they weren't to re-sign him, if the Lakers weren't to re-sign him, I could see him going to a team like the Raptors and leading that charge over there.
Yeah. Yeah, I also have the Lakers here. I think he can also fit on the Chicago Bulls. I think that would be an interesting prospect for Austin Reeves, but I find it interesting with the situation with LeBron James and how it's going to work for Austin Reeves, because LeBron is obviously, as you said, Daniel, at the end of his career. Austin is going to be a long-term guy for this Lakers team, but how much help you can get in the surrounding pieces is going to be so important to them. So I could see them offloading Austin because he requires such a big contract, and even offloading LeBron possibly, so they can get a lot more help around Luka Doncic. Now, obviously, Luka is vouching for Reeves to be there, and I think he will be, and that's why I do have the Lakers re-signing him. I just am going to be interested to see who they get around, because Rui Hachimura, I think, is also a free agent in this cycle. They have a lot of big name free agents that they have to re-sign, but I just think the depth of that team was terrible last year. And with Luka Doncic going down, that was kind of the end of the team. They had a miraculous, series win over the Rockets. Woohoo, that's the Rockets. Like at the end, like I was so down on the Rockets last year. And they went out and had an entertaining series against them, and then the Thunder swept them. So I think they're going to need a lot more. I could see them getting rid of Austin Reeves to kind of, spread the wealth a little bit. I just don't think it's going to be in this free agency class. But if they want to trade for Giannis, I think that they would also. That's another situation where they would have to offload Austin Reeves. So there's paths for it, but I think ultimately, I think the Lakers do find a way to get Austin Reeves back in LA. All right. Speaking of Los Angeles Lakers, this is another guy, little known man that wears a pretty good jersey number, wins a couple of championships. LeBron James is the next player up. There's a lot of different teams he can go to this year. I think that there's a lot of discussion that this being as possible last year in the league. Where do you guys see LeBron James going? We'll go one more time around. Daniel, you're going to start.
So I'm going to go purely based off vibes here and not how this team would work functionally. But I think
you went with that with James Harden to the Magic. All right, we already get that vibe, dog.
No, but just because all the rumors that have been coming out, I'm gonna go Warriors. I think the Warriors are actively gonna be.
I also had
LeBron.
the Warriors.
You guys want the unction?
That is also the team that I had. Oh yes.
I just think that pairing will be fun to watch. You know, given it probably being his last season, it'll still be fun to watch. You have two of the best shooters of all time playing together. I think it would be great.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, continue.
I'm gonna say I did see a rumor of them adding possibly a third piece to that too, and I don't know if he's on this list of who we're talking about, but
probably not. You could just say it.
Kawhi Leonard?
No, he's not on this list.
But
that could be an interesting trio.
There are rumors that they could get all three of those paired up, and to see that would be great. But I think this Warriors team is actively pursuing to get LeBron for what could possibly LeBron and Steph's final years.
Yeah, Sergio, before you go, because I also had the Warriors, I'll just go real quick. I think that there's so many teams that he could go to that I think could benefit from LeBron James in his final year. I think he's going to look at the teams around the league and is he going to ring chase or is he going to try and just play his last seasons, in a comfortable scenario, right? And so there's a couple of different teams that I think he could go back to Cleveland. And that could be a situation where, he spends one final year in Cavs land. And also, that's a team that got really close to the championship. So that could be a something that draws him to Cleveland. The other team that I think he could go to is the San Antonio Spurs. This is a team that has the option to offload a lot of contracts, maybe even De'Aaron Fox's contract. And they finding a way through trade, obviously that's going to be a whole different challenge at the end of the day for the Spurs. But I could see LeBron going to the Spurs. This is a team that has a young core that was very close to a championship. Working in San Antonio could be an interesting thing. But I ultimately have Golden State. I think he's going to want to stay closer to California. I think he's going to want to have that mix of still a good championship contender, but also have the money to be able to pay for him. I think the Lakers are going to go all in on trying to get Reeves and possibly Giannis. So I think LeBron's going to be the odd man out there, which is crazy to even say that sentence. And I think the Warriors are going to pick him up. I think the Steph and LeBron, I think LeBron really does want to play with Steph Curry. And so that's going to also draw him in to Golden State. Draymond is there, who has always been a friend of LeBron's. I think just in terms of as you said, the vibes of that team, I think LeBron would fit really well. I think the money makes sense. I think the team makes sense because I think that they can compete for a championship if LeBron James does go to the Warriors, and they also pick up another. I think they still have Porzingis on that team. Jimmy Butler will be back from injury. They got a couple of good shooters in there. I think this could be a really fun team to watch. So that's why I also have the Warriors being the team for LeBron James. Sergio?
Yeah, the unction makes a lot of sense. It would also be really fun to watch. I mean, he's wanted to play with all those. LeBron has said he's wanted to play with all those guys for a long time. But and as much as I could see that working out, I love seeing players go back to their original team for one last time. So I have him going back to the Cavs, even if they sign James Harden, like money will be crazy trying to figure that out. But I'd like to see him go back to the Cavs just to finish out his career with the team that drafted him.
Yeah, I don't know why. For me personally, I think that would be a boring scenario because he already went back to Cleveland. Yeah, but I'm like, at the end of the day, like what? I don't know. I just think it would be more fun for him to be in Golden State or San Antonio. That's kind of like where I'm leaning, but he doesn't really care about my feelings, right? He might want to go back home per se. But I think he's gotten to a point where he's moved to LA and LA's home is his home now, and so we'll see if he still has that connection to Cleveland to try and get to a championship. All right, the next player I have was we're gonna try and go through this a little quickly. Giannis Antetokounmpo by trade. This is a big topic that's been happening over the last couple of months. Where do you guys see Giannis Antetokounmpo getting traded to? I will go first, and there is a specific scenario with another player that I have in this list. I think Giannis Antetokounmpo goes to the Boston Celtics. I think the Celtics have been very aggressive with trying to get Giannis Antetokounmpo. There's been a lot of rumors about that, and I think with this specific scenario of a trade, like a 3 or 4 team trade, I think that Giannis is going to go to Boston. I think Milwaukee will get a couple pieces back, but I'll fit that puzzle piece a little bit later in this list. But I think Giannis goes to Boston. Sure, it's him staying in the East, but I think Boston's going to make an offer, possibly with some other teams that Milwaukee's not going to be able to refuse, especially a team that has a lot of good young pieces that Milwaukee needs because they're in, a hole right now in terms of capital, but also talent that is going to be good for them. Miles Turner, I thought, was a pretty much a bust of a pickup for them last year. Kyle Kuzma, I don't know why he's still employed. AJ Green is whatever to me, but this team is just not like Ryan Rollins is decent, I would say, but the rest of the squad is pretty horrible, and I think they need a lot of draft capital and a lot of a lot of just young players that can be difference makers for them. So I think Giannis is going to go to Boston. Let me know what you guys think. Sergio, where do you think that Giannis Antetokounmpo gets traded to?
Yeah, I've heard Giannis to Boston over and over and over again since the playoffs have started and since the Celtics were eliminated. I think it makes a lot of sense for him to go there, but I'll say I think he gets traded to the Heat. I mean, it's kind of like a blank slate. Well, I mean, they're both blank slates for him, but the Heat, they need another star. They need, who's not going to say no to Giannis? They have the package to get him, get in there with Mr. 83. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Would you not think that Bam would be part of the trade if Giannis goes to the Heat? Because I think that's kind of where I'm leaning if he does. Because that's where I originally thought he was going to go, like a couple months ago. But then I thought to myself, like, Pat Riley is so, like, just he's so stringent on keeping Bam. He went out and said that Bam in his closing press conference that Bam is just some type of player that I don't think he is. Right? I think Bam is a really good player, but I don't think he's like a generational player like Pat Riley thinks he is. And so I think that's where. Yeah, he either he's going to have to offload Bam Adebayo and send him to Milwaukee, or he's not going to get Giannis. That's what I'm thinking right now. Because I don't think that they have other play. Because Norman Powell is also a free agent. That could have been a guy that I think could have been traded to Milwaukee, but he's not going to be on the books for the Heat. So I think it'll be interesting to see if the Heat do pick him up. All right, Daniel, let me hear it. Where do you think he goes?
I'm going to say Celtics as well, only because I have it in a 3-team trade that benefits another team of mine.
Okay. I think it's interesting if we have the same third team. Because I have been also hearing rumors about this specific trade. There's actually 2 teams that could be involved in this, Milwaukee and Boston. The third team, I would say. So let's go with do I want to go with the guy that I think was going to be part of this trade, or you know what? Let's just get rid of it, because obviously this is going to be part of it. So the sixth player, or the fifth player, I should say, is Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics, who I think is going to be part of this trade that I have concocted in my mind. Daniel, I think I know where you think he's going to go, and I have a scenario where I think he's going to go. So let me hear where you think he's going to go, because I pretty much already know where this is going. So let me hear your prediction. Where does Jaylen Brown go?
Jaylen Brown goes to the Clippers.
Okay, yeah.
And I just think it makes sense, with everything that's going on with the Kawhi Leonard situation.
Yeah.
Should the Clippers decide to move on from him finally, I think Jaylen Brown is a perfect fit for this Clippers team. And with it being, possibly a 3-team, 4-team trade even, I think this just presents Milwaukee with the best chance to get the most capital out of this draft possible for Giannis.
Yeah. Sergio, where do you think Jaylen Brown goes? Because obviously you had Giannis going to the Heat, so yours is going to be out of left field. It's not going to be connected to the Giannis trade.
Yeah, I was gonna say if Giannis does get traded to the Celtics, obviously Jaylen Brown's gonna be part of that trade. If he isn't though, I feel like Clippers make sense, like you said. Maybe a team like the Atlanta Hawks. They just lost Trae Young.
Yeah.
They traded him to DC, so I feel like the Hawks could be a good fit for him.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's been a couple of reports where it says that Jaylen Brown is interested in 2 teams for a trade. It's the Atlanta Hawks is one of them, and so I think that could be a place that he gets traded. But because I have him in this whole thing, the Clippers, again, were originally a team that I thought would be in this trio, but there's another team that has emerged. It's funny because it's also my team. It's the San Antonio Spurs. So the Spurs have emerged as a trade partner possibility for this whole trade. So what I'm saying is Giannis would go to Boston. Milwaukee would get De'Aaron Fox and a boatload of picks from both Boston and San Antonio, and Jaylen Brown would go to San Antonio and be that 2-piece for them. I think that could work out really well. The one thing I will say, the Clippers draft capital is much better. So I could see a just a 1-for-1 where you get a bunch of players. And then I don't think the Clippers have necessarily the players like the Spurs do for possible draft capital, because I could also see a guy like Cornette being moved, or a guy like Vassell. I would be so sad if Vassell left the Spurs, but I could see Vassell leaving the Spurs as well, and for Jaylen Brown to come in for this team. So I think that's where I'm feeling now, because I just think obviously the Clippers have the number 5 pick, and that could be included in the trade, but I don't see how they have the players like the Spurs do, like Fox and Vassell, like I listed, that would be more agreeable for the Milwaukee Bucks to get this trade. So that I have them going to the San Antonio Spurs. But I also have the Clippers as kind of like a dark horse fit for this. All right. It's crazy because we went on this high and now we're going back on this low, because I have Jalen Duren as my last player. As where he's going to go. I will say Jalen Duren had a really bad playoffs. Maybe not statistically, but just aura-wise, because he got dunked on like every other day. And Angel Reese was posting about it like nonstop, and I felt kind of bad for him. But we're going to try and play matchmaker here for Jalen Duren just to make him a little happy. Where do you guys think Jalen Duren goes? Sergio, let's start with you.
Is he like confirmed to be traded?
So he's a free agent, so he can
free agent. Okay.
He can go wherever he wants. Yeah.
I think that aura loss is not great, but I think he stays. I think he stays with the Pistons.
Okay.
I think they traded for him like however. No, he's only 20. Yeah, he's only 22. He can recover from this aura loss. I feel like he's been a contributor for them throughout their run this season.
He has.
So.
All right, Daniel.
I think with an aura loss like that, there's no other place you have to go than Washington after that.
Oh, no.
Ooh.
And to be honest, Washington kind of does make sense for that though, because you got Trae Young there, pretty young core that I think personally can do a lot given the right circumstances, and I think Duran is very much a a choice that I think Washington could go for in signing him in building, continuing to build this young core in hopes of making, first getting a good season under the belt, then, looking at hopefully playoffs and furthermore.
Yeah, Trey Young, I think, has kind of said that he wants to stay in Washington, and so I think with Washington also having the number one pick in AJ DeBonsa or Darren Peterson, I know both of those guys are kind of like battling for who's going to be the number one pick. I think AJ DeBonsa is probably going to be the number one pick. If they offload Anthony Davis, I think Jalen Duren could be a really good replacement for that. So you have a trio of DeBonsa, Trey Young, and Jalen Duren. Washington's looking nice at that point. I am going to go with Chicago. I think Chicago gets him. I also could see the Pistons re-signing him for sure, but another team, if the Warriors don't get LeBron or Giannis in like some big move, I think I could see Jalen Duren going to Golden State. I think that they have always looked for that big man, and Porzingis is there, but Porzingis hasn't been as healthy as they would have liked. Jalen Duren gives them another option at that position along with Curry, and I think that he could really be a little bit of a spark, more like the regular season Jalen Duren, hopefully for them, than the playoff Jalen Duren, because I think at this point, I think the Pistons are going to be a little bit more, reserved in trying to give Duren a larger contract. I know he was trying to look for a max deal. I know that was all in the news. He was looking for a max deal, and then he played terrible in the playoffs. So we can't have that happening if we're the Pistons, and I don't know where he would get that type of contract from, but I think Chicago would give that to him. I think Chicago could be definitely a team that could pair Duren's abilities up with some guys that are younger on that team that almost made the playoffs this year. I feel like they're always perpetually in that play-in picture, and I think that a guy like Duren could push them into a spot like being in the playoffs. So that's where we have all of our free agent signings. I wanted to ask the viewers which free agent signing would have the biggest impact on next year's championship race. Do you think it would be Giannis? Do you think it would be Jaylen Brown if he goes to a team like the Spurs? Or do you think it could be LeBron James? Every NFL season begins with a handful of storylines that ultimately define everything that happens over the next 6 months. Sometimes it's a young quarterback taking the next step. Sometimes it's a championship contender proving they can stay on top. And sometimes it's a team that nobody sees coming that makes some success in the NFL season. Training camp is right around the corner, and today we're going to be looking at our biggest questions across the NFL that need answers before the season kicks off. Which storylines will shape the league, and which answers could completely change the outlook of the 2026 season. So I think everybody has at least 3 questions, right, that we'll be able to discuss. Daniel, let's start with you first. What is your first question?
So my first question dives into the Dallas Cowboys season a bit. My first question is how does George Pickens do in his second season paired up with, CeeDee Lamb? He had a pretty strong season last year. I obviously, him being from Pittsburgh, it was a little heartbreaking for me to see him go over there. But, as long as he's succeeding, that makes me happy. I just wonder, will he progress into the superstar that I think he is? Or will he continue to be that number 2 option behind CD?
Yeah, for sure. And he's obviously had a lot of, question marks coming into this season. Is he going to sign the tag? Is he not going to sign the tag? I feel like that's always a thing with the Cowboys. But, I feel like I think he is in camp at this point, and so he's ready to go with his franchise tag. So I think George Pickens will be good. I think it will be interesting to see if he can replicate that sort of success this year like he had last year, because he was an absolute dynamite for that team on the offensive side of things. Sergio, what's your first question?
My first question is, how will this basically brand new Niners wide receiver core mesh together? It's obviously a Kyle Shanahan led offense. Purdy and Kittle are veterans there. Pearsall is kind of like the vet receiver, though. I mean, Evans is new to this offense. Christian Kirk is new to this offense. They got a rookie receiver, and they canceled minicamp, obviously, so we'll see how they fare during the season. I think they'll be okay, but it's basically a brand new receiver core for Purdy, and questions still need to be answered with, how they'll mesh together. I think Mike Evans will be fine. It's kind of with everyone else that I have questions with. Can Pearsall stay healthy? Can he produce to the level that we think he can too? So that's also part of it too.
Yeah, for sure. I think that Deshaun Stribling is going to be interesting this year because he got drafted. He was the number 1 pick for the Niners in the second round. I thought he got drafted a little high for my liking. I like the player. I just thought that they could have got a guy like Denzel Boston who's a little bit more polished in my opinion. But Deshaun Stribling is a really good player. I just find that maybe his route tree is going to have to be tested a little bit better this year. But regardless of that, Deshaun Stribling, Ricky Pearsall, Christian Kirk, I think it's going to be interesting to see. And also you have some of the guys that are still there, right? Demarcus Robinson is still there. George Kittle's coming off of an injury, so Tonjes is going to be in there for a majority of the season. So this receiving core is going to look nice. I think it's just going to be interesting to see where the pieces fit for each of them and can see who's going to start. But I really think that Pearsall is going to have a big season this year to kind of justify the future of him being the future of this wide receiver room. My number one question: who wins the quarterback battle in Cleveland and who is out? So there are 4 quarterbacks currently that are vying for those 3 spots. Head coach Todd Monken has repeatedly emphasized that this is an open competition and training camp is going to determine the starter. Obviously, the main contenders for me right now are either Shedeur Sanders or Deshaun Watson. I think Dylan Gabriel and Taylor Green are probably vying for that 3rd spot. Sanders did close the season last year as the starter, which kind of gives him some momentum heading into training camp. And the reports do indicate that Sanders has continued to develop, and Watson is physically in a much better place than he was a year ago. So I think it's going to be interesting to see where they go, because I feel like this year, this team is looking a lot better on offense. Spencer Fano, I think, is going to be a huge piece for them on the offensive line. They have 2 receivers in the draft, in Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston. Harold Fannon's coming back for a year. They have a great duo at running back now. I think it's this quarterback is going to be set up for a lot more success in this specific year, and so I think Deshaun Watson or Shedeur Sanders, whoever the starter is going to have a much better year. Monken's offense historically does value decision-making and processing more than pure athletic traits, and I think that's where, even though Deshaun Watson, I think, is the front runner, I think you might see that sort of ability kind of, peak out, where he has been a very bad decision-maker when he has started for the Cleveland Browns over the last couple of years. So that's my number one question. I'll go with my number 2 just so we'll go backwards. Interesting, I think, it's the same division. I actually have all 3 questions in the same division, the AFC North. That's funny. How does Jesse Minter set up this Baltimore defense? John Harbaugh's out of there, and you also have the defensive coordinator is out of there as well. Now you have Baltimore setting up with who I think is one of the best defensive coordinators of the last couple of years in Jesse Minter. I think this could be similar to how Mike McDonald kind of changed the ways of the Seattle Seahawks, which Seahawks were a decent team that were always competing for playoff spots, but they just were never able to get there. You get Mike McDonald in for 2 years, and he wins a championship. I think this could be a similar situation with Jesse Minter, because I believe in Jesse Minter's defense, and they have some dogs on that defense that are waiting for the proper system to be implemented. Again, he built an elite defense at Michigan. He built an elite defense with the Chargers before, landing this head coaching job with the Ravens. His Chargers defense finished among the league leaders in points allowed and pass defense, which was horrible for Baltimore in times last year. And I also think Baltimore retaining, actually, they didn't get rid of the defensive coordinator. Sorry, I said that wrong. They retained Anthony Weaver as their defensive coordinator, which means Minter is not going to have to call every detail for himself. In terms of Baltimore's defense, I'm going to expect a lot of multiple fronts, a lot of disguised coverages, heavy pre-snap. Movement is going to be a little bit, defended a little bit better in Baltimore, I think. And the biggest thing, I think, is positionless defenders. Kyle Hamilton and some of these other defenders that they have on that defensive line can play a lot of different positions, and I think that's going to lend well for this Ravens team to play really well in this year. So I think Baltimore defense is going to become a lot more matchup specific versus just staying consistent with what their defense has been last year. So I think every week the defense could look slightly different depending on the opponent, but I think it's going to look really good. And I am going to be very interested this offseason to see where he sets up the guys. Where does he put a Kyle Hamilton on the field, and where does he put Roquan Smith on the field, and all these pieces that I think can really help this Baltimore defense. So that's my number 2 question. All right. Who went? I think Sergio went second, so we'll just go back to him.
Yeah, my number 2 question is kind of the question with the Raiders quarterback room. It's kind of like, it's not exactly who will start, but when's Fernando Mendoza gonna play football? Like, you have the number 1 pick in Mendoza. He's obviously very talented. He's impressed a lot of people in, OTAs and the start of training camp and everything like that. But you've also got Kirk Cousins, who's a veteran. He's a little older. He's coming off of an Achilles tear that's made him play not great. But, the Raiders have made it clear that they don't want to rush Mendoza into anything. They don't want to, stunt his development in any kind of way and throw him into a situation that he's not ready for. But I feel like it'd be hard to imagine Mendoza not starting pretty early on in the season. I feel like if Kirk Cousins gets the job out of the gate, I think we could see Mendoza start as soon as week 4 or 5. Even that feels kind of late. So the question is, when if Mendoza doesn't get the job out of preseason, when is he going to play? Because obviously fans are dying to see, their Latino quarterback play. So yeah, that's my number 2 question.
All right.
So my number 2 question, keeping the topic of the AFC North. This is the age-old question. Everyone keeps asking it, but how will Aaron Rodgers do in his last season? Because I still think Aaron Rodgers is serviceable. I'm not gonna say he is the best quarterback out there, even given he's my quarterback, but I think he's very serviceable. And I wonder as well how Drew Aller and Will Howard will both develop under this for another season. I truly think that one of these quarterbacks will end up being the Steelers starting quarterback after this coming season, because there's no way that you would keep both of them on the roster just to keep them there as backups. I truly think that one of these guys is being developed under them. We don't know who. Will Howard's been there a little longer, but I think that this goes into just the quarterback room in general. How will this quarterback room shape up to be post Aaron Rodgers and everything that goes on in between?
Yeah, no, for sure. I have something similar to that, so I won't really allude to it, but you can go with your third and final question as well, Daniel.
So, third final question, still in the AFC North. But who wins this division?
A lot of AFC North.
I think this is the most competitive division. I argue even more than the NFC West. I think every team in this division this year is shaped up to go far. Not necessarily playoffs far. I think there's maybe 2 maybe 3 teams in this division that, could, you can go to the AFC Championship game, maybe win a Super Bowl. But for this division in general, I think I saw that face.
Bro, talking about AFC Championship with the Cincinnati Bengals defense, I'm dead.
I just think that's why I said 2, maybe 3.
Yeah, there's one, bro. It's just Baltimore.
Yeah.
It's just Baltimore, bro.
But I just think that this division is shaping up to be another dogfight this year, going down to week 18 again. The way with all these teams are, they've been built up to be. Yeah, I think the Bengals are the weakest link of this division, but I still think that it'll be very competitive.
Yeah, I'm not doubting that it will be competitive. I think that all 4 teams are going to be very competitive this year. I think for free agent question, though, is like, where can these teams improve with the pickups that they've had? You have a big pickup in Cincinnati with why am I blanking on his name now? Dexter Lawrence in the interior of that defensive line. The Steelers they've retained Aaron Rodgers' services, and they got Michael Pittman Jr. in the offseason. Baltimore has Jesse Minter, and they're gonna bring him in. I think they have a renewed sense of life with John Harbaugh out of the building, weirdly. And then Cleveland, right? They got a lot of good draft picks, and Jared Verse is going to be on that team now, which is going to be interesting. So I think this is certainly a question that which players that they've picked up that are new, or coaches that they've picked up new, are going to impress. Sergio, what is your last question for this NFL offseason?
My last question is: can Jalen Hurts beat the allegations? You got rid of your trash offensive coordinator last year that you were blaming everything on, and Kevin Patullo, brought in Sean Manayan, new face, new offensive scheme. Still got Saquon Barkley there. Traded away your diva wide receiver that was causing locker room issues or whatever. Brought in Mekhi Lemon. So, this team is still built for you. They're adhering to everything that you're asking, or not asking, but they're adhering to you. They're trying to make the situation better for you. But can you play up to expectations and bring Philly another Super Bowl? This defense is amazing. So, can you play well? Can you beat the allegations that you're not, a top 15, even 20 quarterback in the league?
Yeah, and I think for the free agent spin aspect of it, it's interesting. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I've said this multiple times that with A.J. Brown leaving and Mekhi Lemon coming in, I think it forces Jalen Hurts to be a little bit of a different quarterback than what he has been good at. Jalen Hurts is really good at deep balls, outside the hashes, getting Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown a lot of air under the ball and getting them deep, right? And so with Mekhi Lemon coming in, that's not necessarily Mekhi's strength, right? Mekhi's strength is his short passing game, getting the ball, getting yak, and being able to generate yards out of short, intermediate, middle of the field passing game. And that's something that Jalen Hurts has struggled with this year and even last year to an extent, right? I guess last year is what I'm alluding to, but that is going to be an interesting thing. Will Jalen Hurts adapt well to replacement of A.J. Brown for Mekhi Lemon? Because Mekhi is a very different receiver. And maybe with the new offensive coordinator, they do change the system, and Jalen Hurts is much better at that. But I think that is certainly an interesting question to see answered this offseason. All right, final question of this entire thing. It's similar to Pittsburgh in terms of the Aaron Rodgers situation, but mine is, what is the dynamic going to look like between Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers? This is one of the most famous NFL coach-quarterback relationships, and they're back together in Pittsburgh. The question is whether it's going to be a reunion tour or this is going to be a championship partnership that they hopefully see from the Green Bay days. Rodgers, obviously, I said it right now, Rodgers and McCarthy spent a decade together in Green Bay. They won a Super Bowl very early on in Rodgers' career, and they also had a well-documented relationship that grew strained by the end of Rodgers' career in Green Bay. So Pittsburgh reuniting them, I think, is very interesting. Rodgers is 42, and McCarthy's trying to win immediately. So I don't say that these two guys are not looking to win. I think both of these guys are looking into the season. They're trying to win the Super Bowl. The Steelers having those young quarterbacks behind Rodgers is another thing where, if Rodgers doesn't start out the year very strong, will they go to those young guys? And what kind of strain will that have on the relationship between McCarthy and Rodgers? So I think it's a very interesting dichotomy between those two guys, because it being Rodgers' final season and McCarthy trying to win in the latter stages of his career in coaching. So this is going to be very interesting for what the pressure brings. This is the most pressure that either guys are going to face that they're forced to face, I should say, in years. And Rodgers is going to need to prove that he can still win. McCarthy's going to need to prove his success wasn't solely because of Rodgers, but now he's back with him. So I think it's very interesting to see in this camp how he performs and what ceiling does that give the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if he does go down or he does not play that well, who do they go to? Will it be Will Howard? And what will that relationship look like between McCarthy and Rodgers? Because this is Rodgers last year, and I expect him to want to play the entire season. So I wanted to ask you guys real quick, which one of these scenarios do you think is more likely? McCarthy and Rodgers win 2 playoff games together, or McCarthy gets fired after one season?
McCarthy getting fired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you say 2 playoff games?
Yeah, 2 playoff games. The AFC Championship that you just said that they could get to. Yeah, do they get to what's more likely, AFC Championship game or McCarthy gets fired?
AFC Championship game.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Weirdly, I will also say AFC Championship game. As much as I clowned you before, I don't think it'll happen. But I also don't think McCarthy's going to get fired after this year. Like, everything would have to go wrong for the Steelers team for McCarthy to get fired. And they've given him a lot of money. I don't know who else they would go to. Unless, like, Mike Tomlin wants to come back. I just don't see McCarthy getting fired unless, like, they absolutely shit the bed this year. I just don't see how else they would fire Mike McCarthy. AFC Championship, I think, is in the realm of possibility because of their defense is really good. They got some good options, that they picked up, and Pittman and company. I just don't see it happening per se because of the age of Aaron Rodgers and those defenses that he's going to face in the playoffs. But out of the 2 options, I'm going to say AFC Championship. Did you want anything else to say, Daniel?
No, I was just saying the only way he gets fired is like a 4-13 season.
Yeah. Which
It would have
is,
to be that bad.
not necessarily something that Pittsburgh has seen a lot of over the last couple of years. Let us know down in the comments below, which of these questions do you think will define the 2026 NFL season the most, and what is the ceiling for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026? The World Cup is finally underway, and after just a few days, we've already seen some teams and players completely change the perception around them. Some nations have immediately justified the hype, while others are already facing questions they didn't expect to answer this early in the tournament. Today, we're going to be saying which teams have stock ups and which team have stock downs, so we can ultimately decide, do we want to buy this stock or do we want to sell? So it's going to be a little bit different. I am going to bring you a stock up, and you're going to tell me, do you want to buy the stock or do you want to sell it based off of what you think their expectations will be for the rest of the tournament? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll just start pretty simple. I am going to say my first stock up is the United States. Dominant 4-1 win over Paraguay. Best opening performance by a host nation so far. And I think with their players, Pulisic looked very comfortable. Balogun looked amazing in that game. He got on the score sheet twice. He's tied the leader of this World Cup in terms of the Golden Boot race. And I think the home field advantage clearly mattered in this game. And I think it's going to matter in the next 2 games in Seattle and LA. I think this was the USMNT's best World Cup performance in the modern era. And there is an opportunity for them to move into the dark horse tier if they win this game against Australia on Friday. So are you buying or are you selling on the USA's stock?
So I'm gonna buy here. I just think this team is on an up right now. I think Pulisic is clearly, proving the haters wrong, proving the people that say he is not a big game player. Because he, like you said, he looked very comfortable. He was showing out last week. I think he's proven why he is the captain, the star boy of this team. So I will be buying the stock.
All right. You got a stock to bring up?
I don't know. Is it too soon to bring it up? But give me Spain.
You bring up whatever stock you want, bro.
I'm gonna Spain. Spain had an abysmal performance yesterday. Could not find the back of the net at all. Finishing was horrible, only hitting the woodwork or worse. Was that a matter of Cape Verde's defense being that strong, or was that more of them just not being able to finish and create chances like that Spain should be? Now, there's a lot of questions. It's still very early in the tournament. We saw the winners of the last World Cup lose their first game against Saudi Arabia. So, are we panicking? Are we not? But do you want to buy or sell this stock?
I am going to because it's going down, I'm going to buy this stock. I still think that Spain is going to recover well. they don't have the caliber of opponents in this group that could hurt them with this draw. And I'll bring up, do I have one of these two teams in here? I don't think I do. Okay, so I'll bring this up right now because I don't have them in this list. Uruguay and Saudi Arabia had such a golden opportunity to punch their ticket into the knockout rounds. Spain drew Cape Verde. You still have a match against Cape Verde. Both of these two teams do. And you have the match against Spain. Sure, I'm going to chalk that up as a loss for both of these teams, right? Spain and Cape Verde could have got 3 points and then could have got another 3 with I should say Saudi Arabia and Uruguay. Could have got 3 points, could have got a match with Cape Verde, got another 3 points in that one, and punched their ticket. Saudi Arabia especially, they led that game 1-0. And I don't want to turn this into a thing about Saudi Arabia because I'm upset for them personally because they had a chance to get to a knockout round that I didn't think originally that they did. So now we'll see where they go because they got a good draw against Uruguay, but I think there was a lost opportunity there. As for Spain, I think Spain's stock is down for sure, but this team I think is still going to be able to recover from this. I think that, sure, you said that Argentina lost in 2022. I think this is a little bit different because I just think that the roster was just not what it should have been. Dani Olmo, Lamine Yamal, and Nico Williams. I think it's Nico Williams. That's his name, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those 3 guys were your most dangerous attackers at the Euros, and you don't start any of them against Cape Verde. You got to respect the opponent regardless of who it is. And this is why all these people that have been, clowning this expanded World Cup, they got proven wrong yesterday. So I'm still going to buy. I am reluctantly buying, though, because I think that there is an opportunity here for Spain to absolutely collapse because they just aren't able. And this has been the case for the last 2 World Cups. They haven't been able to convert on their chances. And with a team that has a lot of empty possessions is what I like to call them, where you just have a bunch of possession and it doesn't really lead to anything. They have a lot of empty possessions. This is a team that needs to convert on their chances when they have the opportunity to. And I am really scared about that, but I am still going to buy the stock. All right. My next stock up is going to be... You had a stock down. I guess I'll give a stock down, actually, to match right there. Stock down for me, Tunisia. So Tunisia lost 5-1 to Sweden. Their defensive structure completely collapsed. And they have the worst goal differential amongst teams that have played, besides Curacao. Curacao has the worst one, but they are tied with Paraguay for the second worst, actually. Is Tunisia the weakest team we've seen so far? I don't think so. But also, they have had the most turmoil in the team. So can they recover before facing Japan and the Netherlands? Are you selling or are you buying this already insanely low stock? I think that at the end of this day, even getting a point would be a good return for this team. So are you buying Tunisia?
Yeah, it's unfortunate what's going on with this team right now. Unfortunately, I'd be selling. I don't know why I'd have stock in this team anyways, but I would be selling that as quickly as possible. I would have sold in the middle of the Sweden game. But, chemistry's at an all-time low right now. Your coach just got fired mid-World Cup, which I think is a terrible decision. No matter how bad your coach is, you gotta let him stick it out through a tournament. You can't do that, especially with some of these players.
Now they're bringing Hervé Renard in, which I don't know. Hervé Renard finds a way into a World Cup team regardless of situation. It's just so crazy to me.
Very. But yeah, like some of these players probably had a relationship with him, and so to just take him out mid-tournament, it's not a good look on your federation. So, and you got 2 strong opponents coming up at that with Japan and Netherlands. Yeah, a little shaky, I guess, with their first games. But at the end of the day, this is very much they're still very strong opponents that I don't really expect them to get points out of, so I'd be selling.
Yeah, weirdly, I think that Japan is the team that could take them lightly and just lose this game randomly. I was there at the 2022 World Cup when they played Costa Rica. This is a team that just came off a win against Germany, 2-1, a comeback win. And then they were so flat against Costa Rica, and they came out and lost that game 1-0. And so that is a scenario where I think Tunisia could get back. Their goalkeeper has to get replaced as well. What a terrible performance by that
Oh
goalkeeper
yeah.
in that game. Alexander Isak was sitting, shooting ducks at him, and he still wasn't able to save it. So that is a terrible performance by them. All right, you're up first. Give me a stock up for you.
A stock up.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think a stock up. I think somebody like Ivory Coast.
Well, yeah,
How-
I'm already bought in for that, so I'll buy in even more.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, Ivory Coast was just phenomenal game against Ecuador. Some people might blame Ecuador's lack of attack and them not having the players, I guess, the quality players to finish the chances that they were creating. But at the end of the day, Ivory Coast looked very comfortable this game. They were very, I guess, I don't know, want to say dominant, but they were because it was a very 50-50 game, but they just looked really good. They looked
especially
good
in the second half.
Yeah, that second half was great against them. So I just think that this is a team that can go up. So I want to know, will you be buying up?
Yeah, I'm buying more because I think this team can go out and beat Germany. I just don't think Germany is. We look at the 7-1 scoreline and we're like, oh, this team is going to be a favorite. I still don't trust Germany as much as some other people do. But coming into this tournament, I said there is an opportunity for Ivory Coast. If they can get 3 points against Ecuador, they can win this group because I think they can draw Germany and then they could beat Curacao, get 7 points, and go to the top. While I think Ecuador, now that they've lost to Ivory Coast, is going to play super hard against Germany and try and get the win. They could possibly lose that game against Germany, but I think that the pressure is going to be on Ecuador now to try and get results. And I think Ivory Coast is going to get some good results as well. I think they can beat Germany. I think they can be a little bit of a dark horse going into the latter stages of this tournament. And they can get to the round of 16, I think, because I think if they win the group, the round of 16 matchup will probably be France. And that would be crazy if we get Ivory Coast versus France again. A team that Ivory Coast will be looking at that matchup and be like, we can beat these guys because they did beat them in the friendly. But I think that would be super difficult for them. But I'm still buying for this team. I have been bought in. Yan Diomande and Amad Diallo, who didn't even start this game, which is crazy to me. Amad Diallo got the winning goal though, and I think he will start the next game. But those two guys are lightning bolts off the wing. Like there's no other thing about it. I did not see Piero Hincapié be put in a straitjacket, or I guess straitjacket's the wrong word because that would be insinuating that he was defending him. But he was saucing Piero Hincapié, Yan Diomande. And this is a player that I thought was really good, but just looking at the first performance, I think he's going to give those German fullbacks a lot of trouble. So, I'm buying Ivory Coast. Okay, last one. I want to give you a stock up, which is the World Cup atmospheres. I think Mexico's opener really felt like a historic event at the Azteca. SoFi Stadium, I think, looked amazing for the USA game. And Toronto showed in force for Canada's opener. Fans have really traveled from around the world. Do you think that this type of atmosphere will continue to be happening at these World Cup games? Or do you think that this is just what happened for these opening games and it's really going to tail off? So are you buying or selling on the World Cup atmospheres?
I am buying. I think as long as there's passion for this game, the atmospheres will continue to be great. And with Mexico, this is Mexico's first home World Cup since I think '86, I want to say. So of course the fans are going to show out. And I continue to see that, with their next two group stage games and with the possibility of, their knockout. Should they make it a knockout stage game as well. But with the US, I will say I was a bit surprised with how that atmosphere came out because, you hear all the talk about, soccer isn't, respected here, it's not as popular here. But then you see that game last week and everyone was showing out. It was a full house and it was loud and I loved it. Atmospheres are one of my favorite things. And even with Canada was great. Canada's a bit of a soccer country. I won't say they as much as, Mexico and Europe and places in Europe, but they're still a decent sized soccer country too. And so to
Yeah.
see all these countries showing out so far and supporting their nations, it's a great thing. It's bringing everyone together too. So buy
Okay.
a stock up.
Nice. All right. Give me your last stock that you are talking about.
So my last stock, I didn't know we could do this, but I still have another team.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you Turkey. I'm gonna offer you that. Do you want to
Okay.
buy or sell? Because I feel like this is one of those more difficult ones. Because, against Australia, yeah, they couldn't finish their chances, but I still think that this team is they're better than what they performed against Australia. That 2-0 scoreline doesn't show for what they did that match. I think this team can still do good things. They got Paraguay and they got USA. Yeah, USA will be their toughest opponent, I think. I think Australia was more of like I don't want to say a Mickey win, but it was one
It
of
was a
those more
tougher matchup in terms of the style of play for Australia. I agree.
yeah. And so my question to you is, would you buy this team? Would you buy the stock in this team, or would you sell with how questionable their next two games may be?
Okay, so I think pre the World Cup, the expectations for this team were probably round of 16. I would say more people had this Turkey A team winning the group. Then if they won
Yeah.
the group, they would have played like some team like Bosnia in the round of 32. They would have beat them and then played Belgium or somebody like the Group G winner in the round of 16, and they would have nodded out. Or you might have had them. I would say round of 16 or quarterfinals was where a lot of people had Turkey, right? So do I think that they can get back to that? And am I buying this stock, which is now lower? So I guess like now the expectations would be like round of 32. Am I buying them to go further than around at 32 now? I'm gonna sell. It's weird because again, Turkey was a team that I originally in my first World Cup prediction had Turkey winning the group. And then as we got closer to the tournament, I saw a lot of people say the same thing. And I thought to myself, I think that this team could possibly break under the pressure. Now saying that, I thought that they could have still got second. But now we're sitting in a place where they could probably get third, right? I think the
Yeah.
USA looked really good in the Paraguay game. The Turkish national team, their issue is they rely so heavily on those three attacking midfielders that if you are able to stifle that, you are going to be able to win the game against the Turks, right? I think a lot of people looked at the names of Çalhanoğlu and Yildiz and Arda Güler, and they thought to themselves, that's the way that they win. And sure, that is the way that they win. But they don't have the first of all, they don't have the height at the attacker position to do anything in terms of the crossing. Harry Sutar was pumping everything out of there. And I think that this team might get eliminated. Now, I maybe I'm being hyperbolic. I think they get a draw against Paraguay because I think Paraguay is going to be desperate to try and get some points. And I think the USA, I have them beating Australia, but the USA could draw Australia. They could even lose, to be honest, but I still think the USA is going to present a easier matchup for Turkey stylistically. But I think at that point, they're going to be just shell-shocked, and USA is just going to at least get a point out of that. I think the USA beats Australia, and they get a point out of the Turkey game, or vice versa. I think they draw Australia, and they beat Turkey. And I think Turkey is going to be out of this World Cup with like 1 point, which is wild to think.
But I would have said you were crazy before this tournament.
Oh, yeah,
Wow.
for sure. But now, like, I think Paraguay is going to bounce back. I think I trust Paraguay to bounce back more than I do Turkey. I don't know where you
can see
sit on that
that.
fence, but I just think that Paraguay present the same issues that Australia does defensively. And the reason why the U.S. was so good at breaking them down was because they had a lot of unselfish defenders and a midfield that passed the ball so much. And this Turkish midfield is just not good enough.
I see it. I'm starting to see the world where this happens.
Yeah, so that's where I'm leaning. I'm selling on the Turkish stock, even though the expectations have gone a little lower. I just still think that they're not going to beat them. So
Yeah.
again, That was our stock up, stock down for today. If you guys could buy one stock in a World Cup team or a World Cup moment or a World Cup player, who would it be and why? Let us know down in the comments below. All right, let's finish up with our quick segment at the end where we will have our locks for the next 4 days until our next podcast. So we'll start with today, actually, June 16th. Is there a lock that you have? My lock is going to be, I think Portugal is a lock to beat DR Congo. I think they win 2-0. I think this will be a very difficult game for the Portuguese, but I still have them winning. I think I trust them the most out of today to get a win. So give me Portugal 2-0 against Congo.
So that game's actually tomorrow.
Oh, is it?
But yeah, it's tomorrow.
Why did I write that down for today then? Okay, you know what? Today, I will say Argentina beat Algeria.
Okay, that's probably the easiest lock out of all of those. But you know what? I'm gonna give a lock at a tie against France-Senegal.
Ooh, okay. Gotcha.
I think this game is gonna be very, very high scoring. Well, not very high scoring, but I think there's going to be two sides that are going to be scoring quite a bit. I can see this being a 2-2 draw.
Okay. All right, you get first pick for June 17th then.
So that would be tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So tomorrow, I think I'm going to take...
You can take Portugal, because I'm actually going to go with a different direction.
You know, I'll take the easy one than this one. I'll take Portugal, DR Congo, because I think I know where you're going with this one.
Yeah. I think you had the same thing as me, which is I have more conviction in this than I do Portugal beating DR Congo. England and Croatia is going to be a draw. I think for sure it's going to be a draw. I don't know if that was what you were thinking, but I think this could be one of the most boring games of this tournament, even though the amount of players that are on this team on paper look insane. So, yeah.
I was thinking of a Croatia win.
Really? Okay. Dang. Yeah. That would be crazy. Okay. June 18th, real quick, I'll go first on this one. I'm going to say Canada beat Qatar. I know Qatar got a point out of the Switzerland game. I still don't believe... I don't know what they're going to have to... I think if they beat Canada, I will finally, succumb to any Qatari hate coming my way. Because I have been so off of this team, even though they won 2 AFC Asian Cups. I've been so off this team. But the expectations of downplaying how good Qatar is has played into them getting big results in some of these tournaments. So I still think Canada wins because I think they're going to have a raucous home atmosphere. I think they're going to ride that to a victory, and they're going to finish their chances a little bit better in this game. So give me a Canada win. Who's your lock for June 18th?
So my lock, I wanted to... There's 2 games I'm really looking at here, but, being the fan, I'm going to take a Mexico win over South Korea.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's my lock. I think Mexico furthers their status of being a dominant host country and, essentially locking their spot into the knockout stages on Thursday.
Okay. All right. And then you get the last lock for Friday's games. June 19th.
So I already know what game you want on here, so I'm not going to take it. But I'm going to take it.
Go ahead.
No, I don't.
No, take it.
No, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and what we were talking about with the stocks. I think Turkey gets a win against Paraguay.
Okay.
I think they're my lock.
Well, I was actually going to do my lock because I was like, he's going to go USA. So, I was going to say Turkey gets a draw against Paraguay, but I'm going to say it. USA gets a win against Australia. I might be a little bit of a homer. I just think that team looks so good against Paraguay. And Australia is a better team than Paraguay. They're a better defense than Paraguay, in my opinion. In this tournament, in form, right? I would say coming into this tournament, I would have said Paraguay is the better defense, but Australia is looking really good. And the counterattack is so dangerous, I understand. Australia's counterattack is going to present a lot of problems to this U.S. back line, but I think that because of how well this team is gelling, the passing is looking insane, the shot attempts are, the shot creation is very good. Right, they're making the chance creation is elite for this team. It's going to be if they finish their chances, and they finish their chances in these last couple of games, including the friendlies. I think they finish their chances in this one, and I think they win this game 2-1. I think they do allow a goal, but I think they win this game 2-1. So those are our locks. That was our show today. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and please subscribe on this video. Please like on this video as well. And if you guys can please follow us on @TheRelayMedia on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and YouTube. That'll be greatly appreciated. We'll be back on Friday. We'll be talking about FIFA World Cup, and we'll bring some other topics, including an NBA way too early power ranking on the next episode. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys on Friday. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon.